When you think of the Trojan War, you probably picture heroes like Achilles and Agamemnon, right? Well, what if I told you that what their most famous storyteller called them and what we call them today are two totally different things? We're about to dive in and solve a genuine Greek mystery. Are the Achaeans and the Mycenaeans actually the same people? So let's start with what we know. We all know the story, or at least the big names: Achilles, Agamemnon, the towering walls of Troy. But what do we actually call the civilization these legendary warriors came from? Believe it or not, that one simple question kicks off a massive historical puzzle. And here it is, the heart of the puzzle. In his epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, Homer calls these guys the Achaeans. But you talk to any archaeologist or historian today, and they'll almost always call them the Mycenaeans. So, what's the deal? Are they the same people? And if so, why the two different names? To figure this out, we have to look at it from two totally different angles. One angle comes from the world of epic poetry and myth, and the other comes from what we have literally dug up out of the ground. Okay, so the most important thing to get straight is this. We are not talking about two different groups of people. We're looking at one single civilization, just through two completely different lenses. It's like one view is shaped by heroic memory and the other is shaped by modern science. Let's start with the storytellers. All right, first up, the Achaeans. This is the name you hear in the great legends, the identity that was passed down for centuries, not in books, but through the power of pure storytelling. Yeah, the name Achaean really belongs to the world of epic poetry. It's Homer's go-to term for that whole alliance of Greek kings who sailed off to fight at Troy. It's the name of legend, of a story told and retold around campfires for hundreds of years. But here's the catch. Homer was writing all this down around the 8th century BCE. That's a full 400 years after the Trojan War was supposed to have happened. So his poems aren't a history book, not at all. But what they are these incredible time capsules, preserving powerful echoes and fragments of a real Bronze Age world that had long since vanished. So, if Achaean is the poetic name, where on earth did the other one come from? Well, for that, we have to put down the poems, pick up a shovel, and switch from legend to archaeology to find the truth buried underground. And that's where we get the name Mycenaean. Historians named this civilization after the biggest, most powerful archaeological site they discovered, the incredible citadel of Mycenae. You see, this name connects the people directly to the physical things they left behind: the palaces, the tombs, the weapons we can actually touch. And Mycenae wasn't alone, not by a long shot. The Mycenaean world was a whole network of these powerful, fortified palace centers. Archaeologists have found amazing ruins at places like Tiryns, Pylos, and Thebes, all giving us this really concrete, solid picture of their civilization. Okay, so we've got our two names. What was this world actually like? What did the archaeology tell us about Homer's heroes? Does it match up? The evidence paints a very, very clear picture. Mycenaean society seems to have been built on three main pillars. You had elite warrior kings running the show. Everything was organized around these massive fortified palaces. And warfare. Warfare was absolutely everything to them. Kind of sounds like the world of Agamemnon, doesn't it? And you can really see how unique they were when you compare them to their neighbors, the Minoans on the island of Crete. Minoan palaces were open, graceful, focused on art and trade. The Mycenaeans? Nope. They built gigantic defensive fortresses. Their entire culture was geared towards power and war. But here's the thing. They weren't just invaders. They were smart. They saw what the Minoans were doing and they learned from them, borrowing their art, their organization, even their writing. But in the end, this warrior culture took what they learned, put their own spin on it, and came to dominate the entire Aegean Sea, including Crete itself. And deep inside the ruins of their palaces, archaeologists found maybe the single greatest clue of all: hundreds of clay tablets. They'd been baked hard in the fires that destroyed the cities, which ironically is what preserved them. And they were all covered in this mysterious script that the experts called Linear B. For decades, nobody could read it. Was it just a bunch of shopping lists, a king's decree, a poem? I mean, who knew? Cracking this code became one of the great intellectual adventures of the 20th century. And the answer? Well, it was going to change everything. And when they finally cracked it, the secret was just astonishing. The language on those tablets wasn't some long-lost tongue. It was Greek. a really, really early form of it, but unmistakably Greek. This was the smoking gun. This was the proof that the Mycenaeans were, in fact, the very first Greek-speaking civilization. So, boom, that discovery just connected all the dots. The heroes Homer called the Achaeans were the exact same Greek-speaking warrior kings that archaeologists called the Mycenaeans. They stand right at the beginning of the entire Greek story. You can see the whole incredible journey here. The Mycenaean world rises up and then collapses violently around 1200 BCE. This collapse kicks off a so-called Dark Age, a 400-year period with no writing, where their amazing stories were kept alive only by being told from one generation to the next. And it was out of that tradition that Homer's epics were finally born. So when you read about the great kings, the fortified citadels, and the epic battles in the Iliad, what you're really reading is a legend that grew directly out of the memory of this real, historical Bronze Age world. The story preserved what the buildings couldn't. So in the end, we need both names, because we need both perspectives. The Achaeans are the heroic memory, that powerful story that survived. And the Mycenaeans are the physical proof, the civilization we can piece back together from the evidence. You put them together, and that's when you get the rich, complete picture. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The Mycenaean palaces all crumbled to dust, but the story of the Achaeans at Troy, that has echoed through our culture for 3,000 years. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Which one is truly more powerful?